Hello. Good evening. I'm Joe Weisner, and this is the Wiseworks Studio. We're going to be talking about a handful of topics tonight. We're going to be going through the epic failure of Netflix, which is crazy. In some ways, I kind of saw it coming. I feel like a lot of people saw it coming, but we're going to be talking about the epic failure of Netflix tonight on the live. My goodness, if you guys tuned into that fight, how such a disappointment, technologically speaking. We're also going to be talking about some indie film stuff. There's a new study that's come out and said that the indie film market might actually have a much larger potential audience than what is currently being tapped, which I think screams to me that there's a serious marketing issue when it comes to the indie film market, but we're going to be getting into that. We're also going to be taking a look at something Dallas Jenkins had to say on a recent podcast where he basically talks a little bit about jealousy of the success of other filmmakers, especially other Christian independent filmmakers. And so we're going to be getting into all that tonight. Hope you stick with me. Hope you enjoy the stream. Appreciate it. If you're here, make sure you interact with me in the live chat. Would be great to talk to you through this live stream. So let's go ahead and dive right into it. If you guys haven't seen the past couple days on social media, there has been just a absolute tidal wave of reels on TikTok and Instagram making memes, not only about the live stream, but also the behind of Mike Tyson. So here's some examples of videos that you might have seen, right?
Netflix servers have absolutely crashed as everybody, no matter how they're watching the stream, is now reporting that they just see, pardon the interruption, and Netflix servers are completely down. Not only do you see this loading screen right here, but some people are just seeing a completely black screen with one more fight until the Jake Paul and Mike Tyson fight. You guys let me know, are you even able to watch it?
So this guy was obviously recording while the stream was happening. Got another guy here that made a pretty funny joke. Check this out.
Guys, I had a serious problem last night trying to watch the Mike Tyson-Jake Paul fight. My Netflix froze at the worst possible time. Oh, you guys had to see Mike Tyson's butt for 10 seconds? I had to see it for 20 minutes, and I didn't blink once. On purpose. Netflix should never be able to host a professional event ever again. Any sport, don't care. Guys, I had a...
All right. That is a really interesting take. Now, let's see what Netflix had to say about the failure. They recently came out, the person that was in charge of the tech behind the stream, the tech behind, Netflix streaming this fight. And this is what they said. I believe, who was it? Netflix CTO Elizabeth Stone had this to say. This is unprecedented scale created many technical challenges, which the launch team tackled brilliantly by prioritizing stability of the stream for the majority of viewers, according to Bloomberg. I'm sure many of you have seen the chatter in the press and on social media about the quality issues. We don't want to dismiss the poor experience of some members and know we have room for improvement, but still consider this event a huge success. So basically what they're saying is it's all right that we had so many problems. It's okay that we had thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of people, maybe millions. Apparently, there was something like 60 million households, Netflix accounts were logged into the stream. So not only are they saying, like, it doesn't really matter, we don't want to degrade the fact that this was a big success. We don't want to take away the hype by the fact that there was a huge issue. Now, I experienced the issue the night of the fight. I experienced severe issues. I had to click out of the fight on probably 20 to 25 times and get back into the stream. At a certain point, that wasn't working anymore. So I got on my phone and it would buffer for like 2 minutes, and then it would start playing an extremely high pixelated image. And so what I'm wondering is, was Netflix the right choice contractually? Okay. Was this the right move for Netflix to host the fight that was this big. Now, I know there's a lot of people that are really upset with the fight itself, calling it, boring. A lot of people are saying, hey, Tyson got his $20 million. I'm not here to talk about that. I'm here to talk about the fact that Netflix really screwed up. What's crazy to me is that they didn't anticipate this being as big as it was. I'm sure they anticipated it, but it's like, on what level is it unpredictable, right? So, for example, they had the first thing they live streamed was like some kind of Love is Blind thing from years ago. And it had the exact same issue. All of the ladies online that wanted to tune into that, my wife, I know that's how I know about it. My wife was watching it. That was like a failed live stream. It did the same thing. I believe there was delays on that first one, like a 45-minute delay because they like crashed and they had to like reboot the system before they started the live stream, which is hilarious. Then they had the live, what was it? The roast of Tom Brady that was live. And that apparently was like a really big deal that got a ton of, maybe it was live, I'm not sure. It was definitely a big ratings. And then they had, recently Joe Rogan did his comedy special, which I didn't hear any issues about that. But what is crazy to me is that they didn't anticipate that there was literally going to be tens of millions of people watching this. You had Mike Tyson returning to the ring to fight. They went to one of the biggest stadiums in the nation to do the fight, so they knew people would be there in person. But what's crazy to me is that they didn't anticipate how many people were going to tune in on Netflix. So it begs the question for me, is this going to be a setback for Netflix? They advertised that they were going to do some NFL stuff. They want to do more sports live streams on Netflix. And at the very least, this is a very large learning experience, but I thought for sure if they were going to get a live stream right, it would be this, and they still didn't get it right. It was almost like I was telling myself the day of, surely there's not going to be any problems. Like, it's 2024, we're almost in 2025. They've had a handful of live streams before. They can handle this, right? But that wasn't the case at all. It was absolutely a disaster because people are tuning in to want to watch a fight, tuning in to want to be entertained, to watch the thing they're there to view. And they pay for Netflix. And so they're like, hey, this is a big deal. We want to be able to watch the fight. Is this going to set back Netflix? I say on some level, yes. I think it's going to be a meme for any kind of live event for Netflix for a while. Even if they start getting it right, it's going to be a while for them to let this roll off of their back. It's not going to hurt them long term, but it definitely is going to hinder their popularity, and they're going to be the butt of a joke for a while. If I think about what would have been better options, like what are the people wanting to view, where are they at, and what would be better options to host a live stream where 60 million plus people are going to be watching? And I have to say, probably YouTube. I'm sure at some point YouTube was discussed and they probably got more money out of Netflix. Perhaps that's probably the reason they went with Netflix. But when you're talking about a live stream that is such a big deal, you got to go with what works. And I think there'd be real power behind choosing someone like YouTube that is a content creating platform, especially like with Jake Paul becoming famous on the platform. I think it would be very fascinating to make a fight like that through YouTube. And I think that needs to be considered more often for sports, for big events. I think YouTube, because they can get their money back with ads. They absolutely can. But I think big events like this should be free for the public to watch. And it should be on the place where the majority of viewers are watching. Like, it doesn't matter how many people have a Netflix account. You do have a ceiling, a very high ceiling, but it's still a pretty, compared to YouTube, it's still a pretty small, like low ceiling to the cap of viewers that can actually watch it because it's behind a paywall. With YouTube, it's way bigger. And I think on some level, we need to create a culture of saying like, hey, entertainment like this more and more is becoming cheaper, and almost free. And I think the industry, because of creator culture, has to shift and say, no, this is going to be free content. Like this is going to be free entertainment because there are other ways for us to make money. And I think that's very valuable. I think that's where the industry and where people who are online and watch and stream stuff all day long on YouTube, they are going to expect big events like this to happen on places that are free and places that are tried and true. And so I think it's a huge fumble to not have done this on YouTube. It should be free and they can make their money back in ads. Just because like people probably like Tyson and Paul made more money from Netflix, they should figure out some kind of deal with YouTube to host it. And YouTube should definitely be open to hosting like the major events. I don't see why YouTube's not more a part of that. I know there's a lot of contracts, there's a lot of business red tape to get through, but I think that would be very valuable for everybody. So is this going to set back Netflix? No, not in the long term. Is it going to change the perspective of live streaming? I think so. And for big events like this, I think there's actually going to be a lot more consideration to do stuff like this on YouTube. I think that would be the right move. I don't know. Let me know what you guys think. Leave it in the comments. Leave it in the chat. Would love to discuss with you all. There's a lot of trailers dropping recently. There's quite a few trailers. I saw a trailer today for How to Train Your Dragon, like a live action thing. Let me know if you guys have seen that, because that looks like a shot-for-shot remake, but I'm kind of interested because I really like the How to Train Your Dragon stuff. There's a lot going on. And Wicked's coming out. There's so many films and so many different pieces of entertainment that's coming out. And honestly, I don't know. I'm excited about some of it. A lot of it I'm less excited about. I was really excited about the fight, actually. I was having conversations with my friends beforehand. We were wondering. We were not making bets. I didn't gamble on the fight, but we were talking about what is going to be the outcome. Who's going to come out on top? Does Jake Paul even have a chance? And so that was exciting. I just kind of wish it was a much better experience because, my goodness, what a horrible entertainment try. It was a disaster. All right, I want to get into this study. This is a pretty big deal. This study about indie filmmaking. And let's just go ahead and get into it. So there's been a new study that was conducted by an individual or maybe a group of people at Harvard to decide to look into the indie film market. All right. They wanted to take a look at the indie film market and see if there's an actual audience for this thing. So study reveals untapped market of 40 million people who will pay for indie films on streaming. That's kind of a bombshell, especially for myself. So I've made probably like 5 or 6 short films. One was 45 minutes long. One was like 52 minutes long. And so in the past, I've been very involved in the indie film market. And by that meaning like self-funded. So more self-funded indie films, less like small, investment type of stuff. But it was mostly done out of my own pocket. But this very, very much fascinates me because whenever you start to hear that there's an audience of over 1 million people that are interested in paying for indie films, it really causes people to perk up because entertainment and streaming and paywall content for creators is so dominated by the studios that it causes indie filmmakers to really feel just stomped on. It causes them to really feel taken advantage of and to really feel hopeless. But this new study actually reveals something that's very fascinating. And I pulled up the PDF that's like the whole written study. I'm not going to go through this whole thing, obviously. But basically, the key findings from this study was that the estimated current U.S. audience of the indie film market is around 36.7 million individuals in the U.S. But through the study, they basically found potential audience size of being 77 million. So there's a discrepancy. There is an untapped market of about 40 million people who would be willing to pay to see more indie films. So when I see this, what I all of a sudden go to is the idea that who's in charge of marketing? Like the indie film market has a severe marketing problem. If there's 40 million people that are potentially willing to pay for indie film projects, what's crazy about the indie film market is that the majority of everything that comes out that the indie filmmaker can do is to submit to film festivals to try to get recognition. That's how they get it in front of eyeballs. Well, interestingly enough, we have the internet now, so actually that's becoming more and more obsolete, and it's a big scam. Honestly, it's a huge scam, the film festival, because indie filmmakers have to pay to submit their film because the film festivals need to earn, their cut to show all of these films or to even just consider them. I submitted one film that I did to 4 different independent films. I spent a total of about $300 or $400 to submit it to festivals, and I made sure it followed all the requirements. And not one of those 4 festivals even considered it. They looked at it. Well, first they took the money, and then that somebody watched it and just said, like, it's not going to be submitted into the festival. So basically, just to submit it, you have to drop hundreds of dollars, potentially thousands of dollars, depending on how prestigious the festival is. And then your film doesn't even get considered. It's such a big scam. And I'm not going to say that, like, my film was a cinematic masterpiece, but to not even be considered, like, at the very least, you should have been given a reason for why it wasn't considered. And to be honest, the winners of these festivals are complete BS in a lot of ways. Like, it's so arbitrary. Most of them are super woke, and so they only care about, like, social issues. Like, those are always the winner. It's not just the Oscars. It's not just in Hollywood. It's in the indie film market as well. The indie film market, like, prioritizes these super woke, liberal, progressive agendas and messages in the independent filmmaking. And so it discourages anybody who has ambitions to just tell a really good story without messaging or preaching to anybody, or without pushing, honestly, this very humanistic ideology culture onto the viewers. And you just want to watch something that's entertaining. So when I see this, I'm like, hey, this is actually really exciting because it presents an opportunity for indie filmmakers, a big one. And I mean, this is very important. If you are ever interested in indie filmmaking, or have ever made a film, or you're a part of a small group of people who make films, hear this. Festivals are a scam. They're a part of the Hollywood system because festivals feed signal to Hollywood who they need to pay attention to. And festivals ultimately makes you come across as begging for attention. And with marketing, there's always that risk. You always come across as potentially begging for attention. But what I'm saying is the indie film market entering the space that Hollywood has set up for it, which is festivals, is one of the worst things an indie film can do, because it presents itself as if it's important, and it presents itself as if you are going to get a lot of praise and recognition. And it may be fun when they start saying, like, you won an award, and you could put little symbols all over your poster, but it really means nothing, because the number of people that go from festivals to working full-time as, like, a filmmaker, producer, director, cinematographer, any of that is, like, it's almost just as bad as playing the lottery. Your chances are so incredibly small, even if you make a really good film, because their criteria is set up in such a way to only benefit DEI, honestly. And it's really messed up. And so what I'm saying is, like, there is a market. It says here, this study, a potential market of 70 million people who are willing to pay for films. So hear me out. If you are involved in films or indie filmmaking, or you enjoy it, listen to this. The number one way to tap into an audience of people that care about your indie film is to do YouTube, to do Rumble, X, social media accounts that builds on your personality, so people can learn to get to know you, so people can see your work for free. Yes, and when I say for free, it means no charge of you to submit it, but also you don't get paid in the end, right? However, filmmakers have to grow their skill and their influence. They have to build their personality. Let's take a Hollywood example. What are some of the most popular movies that have come out? Like when you have an entire system that is expecting and anticipating the next movie that comes out, what's one of the biggest ways, the biggest criterias for people's expectations of a film that's going to come out? And a big one is, who's going to make the film? Christopher Nolan. What is his next movie going to be? Everyone's sitting at the edge of their seat. That's because filmmakers in today's world are building a reputation, and it matters actually a lot more about who the filmmaker is, who the director, producer, writer is, than the actors. For the entire cinema history, it's always been who's on camera. It's becoming less and less important now. To having a star, to having a recognizable face, it can help your film. It definitely still helps. But is it one of the most important selling factors anymore? Not really. And so how do filmmakers who are writing storyboards and scripts and coming up with shot lists and going out and interacting with actors on performance and making sure the shot's in focus and lighting and telling their story visually, filmmakers in the indie market, how do they actually benefit themselves? It's by being resilient, by growing your personal influence in the space of cinematography and filmmaking, making as many connections online with other people who do similar work, cross-promoting between the two of you, and giving your stuff away for free, at least for a time, to the audience. And then eventually you can maybe set up a Patreon and put your films up to, purchase through your Patreon, like one-time purchase, or have a subscription model for your own films. But that's so incredibly important, because apparently there's a potentially 77 million people out there who are interested in indie films, and this is such an incredibly untapped market. So, and I've seen other people, like I've noticed online other indie filmmakers who started YouTube channels who are saying the exact same thing. So all I can say is, don't mess around with the system. Break free of the system 100%. Don't waste your time or your money. Because also, consider this. You pay a festival to enter your film. You cannot post, most of the time, the rules are you cannot post that film online or let anybody see it until the festival run is over. Even if you don't win. You literally can't do what you want with your own film until the festival's over. So for a period of time, they're telling you what to do with your own film. And that's garbage, especially if it came out of your own money, especially if you took money out of your own bank account and paid to submit it to their festival to ultimately go nowhere. It is such a scam, and it is such a horrible system where they just put actual creative people at the bottom and just walk all over their success. These people in Hollywood, these writers and executives, they will literally go to indie film festivals and they will watch movies and they will steal ideas. They'll steal your idea before they'll ever hire you to do a film. It is such an incredibly corrupt and scam system. Don't be a part of it. Build your own thing, build your own influence, and stay online. Focus on the people that are actually going to convert to viewers, to fans, to audience members, and to paying customers. And that's going to be in the online space. There's just no getting around it. There just is not any getting around it. Let me know in the comments what you guys think of all this. Interested to hear your thoughts and your experiences. This actually does kind of lead me to another aspect of indie filmmaking, which is kind of like Christian indie filmmaking. If you guys know who Dallas Jenkins is, the popular Chosen show, The Chosen, he's the creator, director of The Chosen. He's actually been in the indie film market for a while, and he just came out with a new Christmas movie called the Best Christmas Pageant Ever. It's a live action film about Christmas book, so it's an adaptation. But I recently saw him on a podcast with the guys who helped fund this Christmas film. So in between seasons of The Chosen, he went on a little bit of a hiatus and shot this film up in Canada last winter. So now it's coming out this Christmas. And he actually had some really interesting things to say. So Dallas Jenkins, in this podcast, as he's out promoting his new Christmas film, he kind of talks a little bit about the jealousy that can come in indie filmmakers' success. So talks about his own experiences, feeling jealous, feeling envious, and having to wrestle with his own appreciation for his own work, and to trust that if he keeps going, he will eventually make it and have his own version of success, which we have seen. He's like the Christian filmmaker right now. He's like the hottest thing in the Christian filmmaking space. But let's take a listen to what he had to say in this conversation, and we'll talk through it.
Happy for other filmmakers? Feel in your entire career happy for other filmmakers in the faith space when they succeed? Because I sometimes am really happy, and other times now in the last 7-8 years after I gave up all my narcissism and materialism, I've been genuinely happy, but I wasn't always. Sometimes I would get a little jealous. Have you ever struggled with that? Or
I'm going to just pause and play it as we go through this. This is like such a valid conversation, because this translates to other, not just filmmakers, it translates to YouTube as well. So for people like me, I have 100% felt this. And if you're not careful, if you are not careful, the jealousy and self-doubt, negative self-talk that can lead from opening yourself up to that is so incredibly corrosive that you can literally get to the point where you're like, man, I'm a horrible filmmaker, not just because I can't get people to watch my film or people can't find it. I don't know how to market it well, but also like people's better at lighting. Like their picture is better than mine. They had access to a better camera and they got to shoot in 6K, and I only shot in like, ultra HD. And there's so many aspects that you could just get so incredibly jealous and so incredibly just self-pity in this process that it's so incredibly relevant.
Oh, absolutely.
You and John both, and Kevin Downs, your producing partner, have certainly displayed a genuine enthusiasm for other filmmakers, and I've always been impressed by that. But it's
and he's right. The antidote to the jealousy is enthusiasm. I think when you actually just decide to push through any negative thought that might be coming in your mind, or like just the feeling of self-doubt, which quickly leads to jealousy, if you could just push through that and instead focus on enthusiasm and excitement and encouragement and celebration for someone who really pops off and is having their day in the sun, like that's a beautiful thing. And that's a real antidote. Let's keep going.
It's not been easy for me.
It's been, it's both and, I think the human part of me, that this job requires navigating a massive amount of insecurity, because you're putting things out there.
that close-up cut back when he says insecurity, he's looking right into it and he does a little swallow. It's like a visual version of insecurity.
That you think you're right, but you don't know, and it's so subjective that there is a massive amount. And so there is, and then there also is this frustration of feeling like you've earned your moment and the moment hasn't come yet. So I think the places where I felt the most jealousy in my career were prior to, I can only imagine, when I was like, man, I'm waiting for my moment, and I feel like Woodlawn was the one that deserved it and it didn't get it. And then I see, I struggle with jealousy that right after Woodlawn, Alex had War Room that just blew up and exploded. But there's a humbling that comes in that kind of carving out the narcissism. I still battle it. I think there's always an element, like,
especially for people who are Christians, like this comes very easily by accident. And he's saying, yeah, there's a constant battle, because it's like, hey, we got to acknowledge the fact that like this jealous negativity that can creep in, especially when you've done like for me, 6 films. The most any of my films has ever gotten views wise on YouTube is 500. I've put it together a YouTube video that has like no editing and hardly any effort, and it gets more views than any of my films have. And that's really incredibly disheartening, because it's like this piece of work that I'm so incredibly proud of is not working. And I do it over and over and over and over again, and it's not breaking through. And that's incredibly wind out of your sails kind of situation. The ship's just sitting there in the ocean. Like you got nothing, and you're just trying to be like, all right, bring out the paddles. Let's keep going. And meanwhile, people are just soaring by you. And you're like, why can't I have some of that wind? We wrestle with the flesh constantly to battle this idea of jealousy. Let's see if he talks about it all, the antidote.
Because it never really happens where you're winning at the same time, usually. Yeah. And so this job comes in seasons. So there's seasons where it lulls off, and then somebody else is getting their moment.
Unless you're Barbie and Oppenheimer. They had their moment right at the same time.
But I think what I respect, that is the genuine part, is I respect quality. I feel like our space deserves it. I think there's been so much stuff that's been lazy in the years building up to where we're at, that whenever there's something that's quality, I'll be a fan of quality every day of the week.
He's saying some real important stuff in the Christian indie film market. Yikes. He's so right. The quality has been suffering for decades. And all of a sudden, you got people like the Kendrick brothers that did movies out of their church. Now, granted, there's some cheesy stuff in there, but they actually had quality and actually like, hey, this is different than other Christian movies we've seen. Then you have years later, movies like shows like The Chosen coming out. And you're like, this is not just high quality. This is a timepiece. Like this is Jesus's story. This is Jerusalem. This is Bethlehem. These are costumes. You know what I mean? Like this is a whole new environment that it's hard to create. And they just basically were like, look, let's do what we can do and let's scale from here. And that's the beautiful thing, I think, on some level of a show, is you can start in a humble place. And if there's belief, you're building motivation, you're building momentum. If there's motivation to keep going, you just keep working upwards. And so with films, you don't always have that. It's kind of like, let's just do it. And if it doesn't work, then we're done. Whereas a show, test the waters, be humble. If there's hope, you can keep going. But again, there's also risk to that. It's going to have to be alternative forms of humble beginnings, either your own money or an investor, because most of the time, any like established investment in indie market films or shows, they don't invest in shows. They only invest in films.
So
yeah, that's really good.
So
Yeah.
that's where I kind of land. What about you?
Yeah, I've struggled with it, and it tends to be a little bit based on if I've predicted a certain outcome, I tend to be biased towards rooting for that outcome, even if I predicted that something wouldn't go too well.
Yep.
So I remember predicting. I remember when Woodlawn came out, I didn't think, like I had a sense of like, I don't think this is going to be as big as it seems like it's intending to be or hoping to be. And whereas I thought, I can only imagine, and I tend to be fairly good at predicting audience reaction, especially in our space. And
you get good at that by trial and error, by doing stuff, seeing how it goes, by looking at other people's examples and being close to them, seeing them launch and seeing how far it goes. That's how you learn to build that skill that he's talking about.
So I remember when Woodlawn, it just came out with such a, I don't know, like not a presumption, but it was presented as though this was big. And I'm like, I don't think it's going to be. So I found myself kind of instinctively kind of not rooting for, but like hope.
Yeah, I told you so.
Like, yeah, I mean, that's a little strong, but there was a little bit of that.
And he's trying so hard to be very genuine here without being offensive to the Kingdom Story Company guy. And I told you so. It's funny to see him present this, because if you look back on The Chosen, you see season 1, they had no idea where it was going. Absolutely no idea how big it was going to be. They had ambitions and a vision to reach a goal without any strong indication that it was going to reach that goal. All they could do is try to be like, we're going to tell the story of Jesus and his followers, and we are going to try to make it the most interesting story possible in the writing, because there's like not a ton of ability to do a lot of action, to do like a lot of effects. There's one documentary or behind the scenes documentary video where they talked about how just the one scene where there was fish in the nets, when when Jesus says, follow me, or put the nets in the water and a bunch of fish come in from season 1, there was a ton of anxiety around that, because all those fish had to be animated. And that was like the big shot that had to look good to really sell this moment for the show. Everyone felt like it was a make or break moment for The Chosen as an established show. Like, we can build a set and have good lighting and have good depth of field and make it look cinematic. But like, if we can't make the fish look right, then how are we going to tell a narrative visual story if you're not even convinced by the image? And so on some level, they started The Chosen having no idea where it was going to go or what it had potential to be. And I think on some levels, Dallas applies that same thought process to other films that he sees happening.
And I was like, well, that's awful, because I'm friends with Kevin Downs and I love him. And I didn't know you guys at the time. But I'm like, I started checking myself, going like, man, no, that's not a great feeling. Yeah. And I just thought of that when you were asking the question, because I'm like, I haven't always been the greatest champion for people. And I've tried to be more in the last 5-6 years.
All right, we'll stop it there. Go check out the Kingdom Story Company interview with Dallas Jenkins if you want to watch the full thing. Came out about 3 weeks ago. So looking at this, like the whole idea of him battling jealousy, the constant narrative of jealousy in the indie film market space, this also translates to the YouTube space, I'm noticing, with creators. Like it translates to so many areas of life, but I'm going to talk about what I know, which is kind of like the indie film kind of / YouTube space jealousy, the content creation jealousy, the success jealousy that you see over and over and over again. And how does it affect filmmakers on the very broad area of how it affects filmmakers is burnout, is lack of motivation. Jealousy can corrode one's spirit to reach the point of wanting to quit or just quitting. And the crazy thing is, I saw this one video of this poor fella who he puts his films out on YouTube. He's got about 8,000 subscribers. He's really passionate about it. He's done quite a few films that he's put out there for free. He really believes in it. And then he had some issues the past year. He put out this video. He cries in it even. And he talks about how he's just lost all motivation because everything seems to be in his way to just do the thing that makes his heart sing, which is make films, to tell stories, to to create the visual action, motion picture narrative of a story that he wants to tell. And that there's so much that lends itself to that. There's so many speed bumps in their way, which I think the world and the creative market should actively be trying to find solutions to get those speed bumps out of the way. But a big part that can destroy motivation and destroy the drive to do the thing that makes you so incredibly excited and scared and thrilled. But at the end of the day, at the end of the project, to feel like you've actually accomplished something like you've never experienced in your entire life is jealousy. Like that is going to be the number one killer of any kind of motivation is jealousy. It's to compare yourself to other people who are doing something similar, seeing them have success, not understand why they are having success, and to start feeling bad about yourself and even angry at them and angry at the people who watched their film who didn't watch yours. You look at the comments and you start trolling because you're like, this wasn't that good of a film. And it's all built out of this toxic anger that starts with jealousy and insecurity. And it's corrosive. And I think the best way to find a solution to this is to start building a community of independent filmmakers online, a community of people who care about creating content on YouTube, telling stories, documentaries, films. Build a community of people that are truly creatives, that aren't necessarily just kind of like the casual YouTubers from a webcam kind of situation who just, I don't know, game or whatever. Nothing against that. It's just a different type of creator. But people who are actually creating like cinematic stuff or even just doing YouTube videos that are cinematically motivated, that really care about the creative process of crafting a video or a film. We have to build a community, a connection group, a cross-promotion group, and understand that when one person succeeds, that is also our success. And when we succeed, it is all of their success. It's the same thing that they're talking about here in this video, that they're talking about the independent Christian film market, where they have seen just low quality and just failure after failure after failure for decades, and just disappointing, cringy Christian films, when they know that Christians should be the most creative people on the planet, like we should be, because we're in a close relationship with the creator of the universe. So why shouldn't we be the most creative people ever? And I think a big part of that is it's almost blasphemous for Christians to put something together that's really horrible and call it Christian call it great because it seems delusional. And they're saying it's taken so long to get to a point where there's actually quality and stuff that looks good, is telling a good story, that's not just tolerable, but enjoyable and actually really exciting. And when they see that, yes, they deal with jealousy over the independent success of other filmmakers. However, if you build a community of people that are like-minded, same motivation, are crowded around the idea that we love filmmaking and we love being independently filmmaking, then everybody's success is yours. And I think that's a valuable perspective to take. I think it creates a lot of excitement. When I go online and I see a YouTube video from 9 months ago that is a short film that somebody uploaded and it has 500,000 views, yes, it worked, right? Or when I see a short film that has 1.5 million views and it was uploaded 1.5 years ago, it's like, yes, it worked. Their success is proof of concept for us, for everybody in the indie filmmaking sector. Going all the way back to earlier in the live stream, the Hollywood system wants to pit filmmakers and creatives against each other. The entire Hollywood, LA, everything is fighting for attention, pitting each other against one another to seek attention and to seek the job and to seek the payday, to seek the big break. And what I'm saying is that is a corrosive system. It leads to what they're talking about, jealousy rather than celebration. And I say we don't need any of it. We don't need any of that incredibly toxic system to be happy and to do what we want to do. We shouldn't be a part of it. Festivals do the same thing. They make you compete for attention. So you're literally hoping that other people's films are poorly shot, are cheesy, don't land, because you paid money and you have money invested in them failing and you being on top. And what I'm saying is that's corrosive. We shouldn't be a part of it. We need to fundamentally revolutionize the creative independent film market. And when we do that, everyone succeeds from top to bottom, from someone coming out of high school who has a dream to be a filmmaker and actually can make it because people who figured out and were a part of the revolution online in the indie filmmaking storytelling space are able to grab their hand and say, this is the path. This is how you do it. And it's a lot easier than it used to be because they used to make us battle it out in the square. They used to make each other's, blood, sweat, and tears over a film just to be stepped on by some executive with all the money and for everyone to just beg like peasants to get the attention of the person with all the money. And I say, screw that. It doesn't cost as much money as it used to get film equipment and tell a story. You can do it yourself. You be disciplined, you get the equipment, you can fund it yourself. There's a lot of people that are looking to act. If they do like stage acting all year long as a hobby, and they would love to spend a few Saturdays shooting a film for free because it's exciting. It's what makes their hearts sing. And when they see that there's a successful short film that got 25,000 views on YouTube, and that's the most viewed thing that you've ever had, anyone has ever seen of your work, then all of a sudden everybody's happy. And if it can convert to you building an audience of loyal fans that can offer you money in the future for either projects you work on or you have a Patreon, everything should be self-funded through the viewers who actually love you and are fans and are loyal to you, not the people at the top who are just looking down their nose at you and expecting you to literally sacrifice yourself to put a little bit of extra cash in their pocket. Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Let me know in the comments what you guys think, if you're inspired, or if you completely disagree with me, let me know. I'd love to hear that story too. Really appreciate you guys all being here for the live. If you stuck with me on Rumble or YouTube, you're the best. I'll see you guys again later. Hope you have a wonderful rest of your evening. Good night.